Hey there, thank you so much for joining me today. This is Laura Lynn with KeepInkingUp.com. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up in San Antonio, Texas. Several months ago, Stampin' Up launched our line of alcohol-based markers. They're called our Stampin Blends, and at the moment we offer them in our 12 of our colors. You can find the colors on page 31 of the current occasions catalog. So right now we have, like I said, we have 12 different colors, and they come in a light and a dark color of each of those colors. You can purchase them individually for $4.50 in the United States, or you can purchase them in a combo pack for $9. You can also order the entire collection of markers, which includes 27 markers, 2 each of the 12 colors, as well as a bronze marker and an ivory marker for flesh tones. We also have a color lifter, which is great for creating textures, for making mistakes, or for doing some additional blending. So those are the markers that we have offered at the moment for our Stampin' Blends. Now, if you choose to use our Stampin' Blends, because they are alcohol-based, you will want to use the Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad for your images, because if you use this ink, you'll get the best quality colored images. If you use a StazOn ink, which is an alcohol-based ink, because it's alcohol mixed with the alcohol from the markers, your image will just blend together and you'll lose your image. So you definitely do not want to use StazOn ink with these alcohol markers. If you use a water-based ink, you might have a bit of bleeding, and so I don't think that you'll be very pleased with the images that you will have. So for the best results, I do highly recommend the Memento ink pad. I also recommend that when you order your ink pad, that you go ahead and you order the ink refill at the same time. I say this because my ink pad was getting a little bit dried out, and so I wanted to re-ink it, and I could not locate a refill in any of my local craft stores. So I don't know if that would happen around where you are, but I do just recommend that you go ahead and order the refill the same time that you order the ink pad. That way, whenever your ink pad is a little bit dry, you are ready to go with the ink refill. So that is what I recommend to do. Okay, so a couple of tips to go with these markers. What I recommend, let me put this aside a little bit. What I recommend is to get a little practice with your markers before you try to work on a project. So what I did is I just stamped out a whole bunch of images. This is the Tuxedo Black ink on our Whisper White cardstock. You can use a Whisper White regular cardstock or a thick Whisper White. Either one works wonderfully. Just stamp out a bunch of images and then just have some fun coloring. Coloring is a very relaxing activity, so stamp a bunch of images, get your markers out, and just have some fun coloring. Don't really think about a project that you need to be working with these images for, because that might add a little bit too much stress. So if you just sit down and color and enjoy yourself, then you'll probably be happier with the results that way. Here's a couple of the images that I've already cut out from my coloring times. I think these came out pretty well. I'll probably use them on a project, but I didn't intend to when I was coloring, so if I wasn't pleased, then I could just discard them. But aren't these pandas cute? These pandas are from the Party Pandas Celebration stamp set, and I just used a little bit of the smoky slate to give him a little bit of depth on his belly and his head, and then I just added a bit of color on the party hat. So just really fun coloring. Same thing here, I just added a little bit of color to the envelope there. And then these roses are from the Petal Palette stamp set. I just think they're so pretty, and I'm sure I'm going to use those on a project somehow. Now, you're not limited to coloring on stamped images. You can, of course, color on our Designer Series paper as well. This is our Petal Passions Designer Series paper that's available in the Occasions catalog, and it is perfect for coloring. Here's an example of a piece. This is the part that I started out with, and here's what I colored. And what I wanted to show this to you is to see how smooth that crumb cake background is. There are no brush strokes to be seen. Really nice and smooth. And that's one of the great things about alcohol markers in general, and how smooth they are when they go on the paper. So that is just an example. And I have an example of a card that I made. I used one of these flowers, and I colored it using Calypso Coral, Stampin Blends, and then the Old Olive for the leaves. And what I really like about our Stampin Blends is they coordinate perfectly with the rest of our products in the same color. So here's Calypso Coral cardstock with the Calypso Coral Stampin Blends, and then of course the Calypso Coral ink for here. So everything all coordinates perfectly because it all matches. This happens to be some retired Calypso Coral ribbon that I had in my stash, which just helps everything go together really nicely. And this again is that Petal Passions Designer Series paper, just a different side of it. So I have a couple of other examples. I have another Calypso Coral. Looks like it must have been one of my favorite colors. This cute little piggy from this Little Piggy stamp set. And you can see here there's a couple of little dots on his little behind. That's so cute. I used the color lifter to make that little bit of a texture. And I did that in the center of the body as well, just to give a little bit of dimension. And I used pink pirouette on his ears and his nose. And again, it coordinates perfectly with the Calypso Coral cardstock. Here's another example of a little bit more of a blending involved. I tried really hard. I'm still new at it, so I need some practice, but I think this blended quite nicely. This actually uses Calypso Coral and Daffodil Delight on the leaves of the petals of the rose. On the leaves, just use the light and the dark of the Old Olive color. And again, because the Daffodil Delight of the blends coordinates perfectly with the Daffodil Delight in the card base. So another really pretty card. And then this one's one of my favorite cards. This is using the Santa Builder stamp set, which is unfortunately now retired. But again, I colored the entire background with Pool Party, and there's no way that I could have gotten such a nice smooth background had I used any other color water-based markers. Alcohol markers are definitely the way to go with this. So I just really like how that card turned out, and I used the flesh tones, the bronze and the ivory, for his little feet and head and hands. So that's another cute little example. So I'm going to put that aside. A couple of tips that I wanted to mention is whenever you are using your Stampin' Blends markers, they will bleed through your paper. So you want to protect your work surface. So I have my grid paper here below, and I just wanted to show you how cool these color. I do want to mention that these lids, I don't know if you heard that click, they are really tight so that the alcohol doesn't dry out. So you really do need to push to open them up. And then I'm just going to go ahead and color a little bit. Look how smooth that is. It's wonderful. I'm going to close that up, and then I'm going to get the lighter color. And I'm going to blend a little bit into that. And the more you go over it, you can more see that line go away. So that's really nicely blended. I'll pull this up so you can see that there isn't a line between the dark and the light. It blended nice and smoothly. But it does, if you see on the back, it does bleed through. So you do want to make sure that you protect your work surface whenever you are using the Stampin' Blends. Okay, so those are just some basic tips. So you can use Memento ink, protect your work surface, just stamp out a bunch of images, enjoy your coloring time, and then use them on your projects. So I hope you found these tips helpful, and that you are interested in purchasing the Stampin' Blends markers. They really are wonderful. You're going to love them. Okay, thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.